welcome to God's 5 Minutes with Pastor Ed Wilson. Reach him at gods5minutes@gmail.com. Now, here's Ed Wilson with God's 5 Minutes.
Hello, friends. Judges 2:11, and the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord and served Baalim. This verse begins a quick summary of the book of Judges and also begins the main theme of the history that follows. That story has 4 chapters, replayed with dreary monotony over and over again. The first chapter is relapse into idolatry. There comes retribution, followed by respite and deliverance, which results in a brief return to God. This last soon passes into fresh relapse, and then the old cycle is gone through again, as regularly as the traffic signals hanging above an intersection repeats their pattern of green, yellow, and red. The sad phrase, "and the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord," is repeated at the beginning of each new dive into apostasy, after which come the melancholy pattern: oppression by an enemy, the raising up of a deliverer, the gleam of brightness which dies with him, and back into the gutter once more. The names change, the time period is different, but the incidents are the same. That is the narrative of the book of Judges from this verse to the end of chapter 16. This continual tendency to relapse into idol worship has lessons to teach. If, for instance, the authors of this national record had been like other historians of the same era, they would certainly have read differently. We search the records of the past in vain for a people whose annals are not inflated and distorted with the vanity of their rulers. In their thirst to accentuate and exaggerate their own prowess, the biblical history of the Jews, by contrast, has as one of its chief themes the sins of the nation. The record of Israel, as told in the Scriptures, is one long indictment of the Hebrew nation. The only rational explanation for such an incongruity is that however many hands were employed in writing this account that covers some 400 years, its true author can only have been God himself. He is the true theme of this book, and the object of which it was composed was not to tell the deeds of Israel, but those of the God of Israel. As to the fact of the continual tendency toward idolatry, the history stands as a solid demonstration of the power of the passions of the flesh on humankind. The revelation of the one God with his stringent requirements of purity stood in stark contrast to the hideous Canaanite religion, which stimulated the vilest passions of which our race is capable. Alas, it's the same carnal impulse we see at work in so much of the Western world today. God is being shunted more and more into the past as a strange and radical idea embraced by our uninformed, superstitious, needlessly inhibited ancestors. Apparently, the lapses into idolatry did not result in entire abandonment of the Jewish religion. Rather, it was mingled with the worship of Baalim and Ashtaroth, resulting in a witch's brew of religious practices that was worse than if Jehovah had been abandoned entirely. To unite Baal with Jehovah is to forsake Jehovah. It is the same with compromising professed Christianity today. Interestingly, this story of Israel's idolatry is a compelling proof of the supernatural revelation that made Israel's religion. Next came every time the anger of the Lord was kindled against Israel. Wrath is an integral part of love. When the lover is perfectly righteous and the beloved are sinful, the most terrible anger is the anger of perfect gentleness. God was angry with Israel because he loved them and wanted their love to him for their own God. His devotion to this people whom he had chosen was shown no less by the swift reaction to feckless disobedience than by the blessings which crowned their obedience. The language describing his dealings is so strong, he delivered them over. He sold them to plunderers. Once their groaning showed his chastening had done its work, his next step was to send deliverers. One wonders how God looks at the world today. One looks to him for our deliverers. Have you talked to him?
You have been listening to God's 5 Minutes with Pastor Ed Wilson. Reach him by email at godsfiveminutes@gmail.com. Tune in next time to hear more encouraging thoughts from God's Word on God's 5 Minutes with Pastor Ed Wilson.